The winter wind slashed through downtown Chicago like a blade of ice, cutting through every layer of clothing, every hope, every dream that 17-year-old Tyler Brooks had left. Beneath the flickering streetlight near Navy Pier, Tyler pulled his grandfather's vintage Carhartt jacket tighter around his shivering frame. The fabric still carried the faint scent of motor oil and Old Spice. Whispers of a man who had loved him unconditionally before the world taught Tyler that love always came with conditions. 8 months ago, Tyler's life had exploded on a live stream watched by over 2 million people. Pastor Michael Brooks, his stepfather and leader of Chicago's Lakewood megachurch, had performed what he called an exorcism on his own son. The hashtag #PastorSonGay had trended for weeks, turning Tyler's deepest truth into the internet's latest spectacle. Now, Tyler survived by collecting aluminum cans and sleeping in 24-hour McDonald's locations. The city's shelter system had failed him repeatedly, each placement ending in mysterious incidents that left social workers shaking their heads and Tyler back on the streets. On this particular December night, as snow began to dust the empty benches of Millennium Park, Tyler's stomach cramped with hunger. He hadn't eaten in 36 hours. His fingers, numb inside torn gloves, fumbled through a trash can near the Chicago Riverwalk, searching for anything that might sustain him through another frozen night. That's when he saw it, a leather wallet, expensive and out of place, lying abandoned on a snow-covered bench. Tyler's hands trembled as he picked it up, feeling the weight of what could be his salvation or his moral test. Inside, $2,800 in crisp bills stared back at him. Enough for food, shelter, maybe even a bus ticket to somewhere warmer. But beneath the cash, Tyler found something that stopped his heart completely. A handwritten letter, yellowed with age, addressed to someone named Jack Sullivan. The signature at the bottom made Tyler's world tilt sideways. Mike Brooks, his biological father's name, written in careful script 2 decades ago. The letter contained just one devastating line that would change everything Tyler thought he knew about his father, his family, and his future. If anything happens to me, please watch over Tyler. He's our legacy of love. Tyler sank onto the frozen bench, clutching the wallet against his chest as tears froze on his cheeks. His father hadn't just known Jack Sullivan. Somehow, impossibly, Mike Brooks had predicted this exact moment 20 years before it happened. The moral choice Tyler faced in that moment, between survival and integrity, would set in motion a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of corporate America and the deepest shadows of military secrets. Sometimes the smallest acts of honesty unlock the greatest truths, and sometimes finding your family means discovering enemies you never knew existed. Follow Heart Stories for the incredible journey ahead, where a frozen night in Chicago becomes the beginning of a story that will shake America to its core. Like and subscribe to never miss the moments that prove love truly conquers all. Tyler's decision to return the wallet led him through Chicago's towering downtown district, where Sullivan Technologies dominated the skyline like a glass and steel monument to American innovation. The 40-story building gleamed in the morning sun, its modern facade reflecting a world Tyler had only glimpsed from the outside. After hours of asking security guards and receptionists, Tyler finally spotted a man in an expensive suit stepping out of a black Tesla. Something about the way the stranger carried himself, confident yet haunted, matched the energy Tyler had imagined from the wallet's owner. When Tyler approached with trembling hands and asked if he had lost anything, Jonathan Sullivan's face went through a transformation that spoke of years of hidden pain. Jack's eyes widened as he patted his jacket pockets, realizing his wallet was indeed missing. Tyler handed over the leather case, watching as Jack's fingers moved through the contents with obvious relief. But when Tyler pulled out the faded letter and mentioned the name Mike Brooks, Jack's composure shattered completely. The powerful CEO, who commanded boardrooms filled with millionaires, stumbled backward against his car. His breathing became shallow. His hands shook uncontrollably, and tears began flowing down his cheeks without warning. For nearly 3 minutes, Jack couldn't speak, could only stare at the letter as if it were a ghost materializing before him. Finally, Jack's voice emerged as barely a whisper. He had been searching for Tyler Brooks for 3 years, hiring private investigators, following dead ends, watching every lead disappear into digital silence. Someone had been systematically erasing Tyler's trail, making him invisible to anyone who might want to help. Jack revealed that Mike Brooks had left Tyler a trust fund worth $50 million, established the day Tyler was born. But the money had vanished from the banking system without explanation, leaving no paper trail, no legal documentation, nothing but Jack's memory of Mike's final wishes. The revelation that Jack and Mike had been lovers during the military's don't ask, don't tell era added another layer of tragedy to their story. Jack explained how they had planned to build a life together after their service ended, how Mike had spoken constantly about the son he hoped to raise with honesty and acceptance. When Tyler shared his own story of rejection and survival, Jack's corporate facade completely dissolved. Here was a man who had built a technology empire worth billions, yet he wept openly for the boy his lost love had entrusted to his care. Together, they began to piece together a pattern that chilled them both. Every time Tyler had been placed with a potentially loving foster family, mysterious problems arose. Background checks were suddenly failed. Financial issues appeared from nowhere, and Tyler was moved to less stable situations. Jack's corporate resources revealed the disturbing truth about Tyler's digital footprint. His social services files had been accessed and modified dozens of times over the years, always by the same encrypted IP address that traced back to Sullivan Technologies itself. The betrayal came from inside Jack's own company, orchestrated by someone with administrative access and deep knowledge of both Tyler's location and Mike's legacy. Trust, Tyler learned, wasn't just about believing in good people, but recognizing that those closest to power often pose the greatest threats to justice. The investigation into Tyler's digital trail led Jack to a devastating discovery that would shatter his understanding of loyalty and trust. Richard Thornfield, his business partner of 15 years and closest confidant, had been systematically stealing it from Mike Brooks's trust fund while simultaneously destroying Tyler's chances at a normal life. But the conspiracy reached far deeper than corporate embezzlement. When FBI investigators reopened Mike Brooks's military file, they uncovered evidence that his death in Afghanistan wasn't the result of enemy combat, but a calculated assassination. Mike had been investigating a massive fraud scheme involving defense contractors who were stealing millions from veteran benefit funds. The same week Tyler learned about his father's true fate, he received an anonymous envelope slipped under his temporary shelter door. Inside was a handwritten note directing him to find a woman named Rose Martinez in a small house outside Chicago. Someone who claimed to know the complete truth about Mike's final days. Tyler's journey to meet Rose revealed the most shocking betrayal of all. Pastor Michael Brooks, the man who had publicly humiliated Tyler and thrown him onto the streets, had been secretly collaborating with Richard Thornfield for nearly 2 decades. Rose, a former military intelligence officer who had worked with Mike, explained how the conspiracy had unfolded. After Mike's assassination, Richard had approached Tyler's mother, Sarah, with an offer she couldn't refuse. If she married Pastor Brooks and allowed him to control Tyler's upbringing, Richard would ensure Tyler never discovered his inheritance or his connection to Jack Sullivan. The plan had been methodically executed for 17 years. Every time Tyler showed signs of independence or curiosity about his father, Pastor Brooks would create a crisis that forced Tyler back into submission. The religious conversion therapy, the public shaming, and ultimately the violent rejection had all been calculated moves to break Tyler's spirit permanently. Richard's motivation extended beyond simple greed. He had discovered that Mike's evidence against the defense contractors implicated Richard's own family members in the fraud scheme. Destroying Tyler meant destroying the last link to evidence that could send dozens of powerful people to federal prison. The most heartbreaking revelation came when Rose showed Tyler a cache of letters Mike had written but never sent. In them, Mike expressed his fears about the investigation he was conducting and his desperate hope that Tyler would someday find Jack Sullivan. Mike had hidden evidence of the corruption at his father's abandoned ranch in Montana, evidence that could expose the entire conspiracy. Tyler's coding skills, developed during long hours in public libraries, became crucial when Jack's corporate security team discovered that Richard had been using Sullivan Technologies' resources to monitor Tyler's location for years. Every social media post, every library computer session, every interaction with potential foster families had been tracked and sabotaged. The realization that Tyler's entire life had been manipulated by adults who saw him as nothing more than an obstacle to their wealth created a rage that fueled his determination to seek justice. But it also revealed something profound about resilience and the human capacity to survive even the most systematic attempts at destruction. When powerful people conspire to silence the vulnerable, they often underestimate the strength that comes from having nothing left to lose, and the clarity that emerges when someone finally understands the true scope of the forces arrayed against them. Tyler's decision to expose the conspiracy through social media transformed a personal tragedy into a national awakening that neither Richard Thornfield nor Pastor Brooks had anticipated. From a secure location provided by Mike's former military unit, Tyler began live streaming the truth about his father's assassination and the 20-year cover-up that had stolen his childhood. The TikTok video Tyler posted at midnight reached 10 million views within hours, as viewers shared the story of corruption that stretched from corporate boardrooms to military contracts to religious institutions. The hashtag Tyler Brooks story became a rallying cry that attracted celebrities, politicians, and millions of ordinary Americans who recognized the familiar pattern of powerful people destroying the vulnerable. Richard's response was swift and ruthless. Using his position as Sullivan Technologies' newly appointed CEO, he attempted to discredit both Tyler and Jack through a carefully orchestrated media campaign. Corporate lawyers filed restraining orders, claiming Tyler was a disturbed young man manipulating a grieving businessman for financial gain. But Richard had underestimated the power of authentic storytelling in the digital age. When Pastor Brooks appeared on national television to defend his treatment of Tyler, claiming the boy had been possessed by demons that required spiritual intervention, the interview backfired spectacularly. Viewers witnessed a man whose hatred for his stepson was so palpable it made them question everything about religious authority and family obligation. The turning point came when 60 Minutes dedicated an entire episode to Tyler's story, featuring interviews with Rose Martinez and surviving members of Mike's military unit. The evidence they presented was overwhelming: documented proof of assassination, fraud, and systematic child abuse that reached the highest levels of corporate and religious power. Federal investigators moved quickly once the story gained national attention. Richard Thornfield was arrested during a board meeting at Sullivan Technologies, handcuffed in front of colleagues and investors as FBI agents read charges including conspiracy, embezzlement, and accessory to murder. The dramatic footage, broadcast live on financial news networks, sent the company's stock price plummeting. Pastor Brooks faced his own reckoning when the IRS announced an investigation into Lakewood megachurch's finances, revealing how Richard had been funneling stolen money through religious donations to hide the paper trail. Thousands of church members abandoned the congregation overnight, many sharing their own stories of spiritual abuse and financial manipulation. The corporate coup attempt that had briefly stripped Jack of his CEO position collapsed as board members realized they had been manipulated by false information provided by Richard's allies. Sullivan Technologies shareholders demanded Jack's immediate reinstatement, recognizing that his integrity represented the company's only path to survival. Tyler's courage in speaking truth to power inspired congressional hearings that exposed the broader pattern of veteran benefit fraud that had cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Military families across America found their voices, sharing stories of loved ones who had died under suspicious circumstances while investigating similar corruption. The climactic confrontation came when Richard's hired mercenaries attempted to assault the Montana ranch, where Mike had hidden the evidence that could destroy the entire conspiracy. Tyler's technical skills proved crucial as he coordinated the defense alongside Mike's former brothers-in-arms, using encrypted communications and drone surveillance to protect the cache of documents that would ensure justice for his father. When individuals choose courage over comfort and truth over silence, they often discover that authentic power comes not from wealth or position, but from the willingness to stand up for what's right, even when the cost seems overwhelming. The federal courthouse in Chicago became the stage for justice that had been 20 years in the making. Richard Thornfield received a 25-year sentence without possibility of parole, while Pastor Brooks faced 15 years for his role in the conspiracy that had destroyed Tyler's childhood and stolen his inheritance. The courtroom was packed with military families, LGBTQ advocates, and survivors of religious trauma who had traveled from across America to witness accountability for those who had weaponized faith and patriotism for personal gain. When the judge read the verdicts, Tyler felt the weight of his father's legacy finally being honored. Tyler's inheritance, recovered with compound interest, totaled $87 million. Rather than keeping the wealth for personal use, Tyler and Jack established the Sullivan Foundation, dedicated to preventing LGBTQ youth homelessness and protecting military families from the kind of corruption that had destroyed Mike Brooks. Jack's adoption of Tyler became official in a ceremony at the Pentagon, where Tyler also received his father's posthumous Medal of Honor. The military honor recognized Mike's sacrifice in exposing the defense contractor fraud, even though it had cost him his life. Tyler wore his father's dress uniform for the ceremony, the fabric connecting him to a man whose courage he was only beginning to understand. The Tyler Brooks Act, passed by Congress with overwhelming bipartisan support, created federal protections for LGBTQ youth facing family rejection and established a $5 billion fund for homeless youth programs. Tyler's testimony before Congress, watched by 200 million Americans, became a defining moment in the fight for equality and family acceptance. Sullivan Technologies transformed under Jack's renewed leadership, becoming a model for corporate responsibility and social impact. The company's commitment to hiring LGBTQ youth and supporting military families attracted top talent and increased profits, proving that ethical business practices could enhance rather than limit success. 1 year later, Tyler began his freshman year at MIT with a full scholarship, double majoring in computer science and social justice studies. His relationship with Marcus Rodriguez, another Foundation Scholarship recipient who had overcome his own family rejection, showed Tyler that love could heal generational trauma when built on authenticity and mutual respect. The Foundation's impact grew beyond anyone's expectations, helping over 10,000 LGBTQ youth find safe housing and supportive families. Tyler's social media presence, now reaching 100 million followers, became a platform for sharing stories of hope and resilience that inspired legislative changes in dozens of states. During a Christmas gathering at Jack's Montana ranch, Tyler read aloud his father's final letter to a room filled with chosen family. Mike's words about love winning against all obstacles brought tears to the eyes of military veterans, LGBTQ advocates, and corporate leaders who had learned that true strength comes from vulnerability and authenticity. The snow falling outside the ranch house reminded Tyler of that frozen night in Chicago when he had chosen integrity over survival. That decision to return a wallet had unlocked not just his inheritance, but a family forged by choice rather than biology, and a purpose that honored his father's sacrifice while building a better future for others facing similar struggles. Tyler's story proved that sometimes the greatest fortunes aren't measured in dollars, but in the families we choose, the courage we find, and the legacy we leave for those who come after us. Have you ever had to choose between what's easy and what's right when everything seems stacked against you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Heart Stories for more incredible journeys of courage, love, and the unbreakable human spirit that proves anything is possible when we refuse to give up on each other.